Hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Red Alert Diaries with Tanya E. Hood. I'm Tanya E. Hood, a wife, a mother, and an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, it simply means I've worn a lot of different hats in my life that have helped me develop a full range of strategies and actionable steps that I've used to help my clients make a strategic impact, both personally and professionally, to have better than what life has been giving them. Red Alert Diaries is based on the life lessons from my premier book, Red Alert. Is He the One? The pocket guide to finding the love of your life. And if you read my book, you already know that I got married at 21. And after 11 years of marriage, I found myself going through a divorce, having to raise my two sons alone. To reset my life and survive my divorce, I took the time I needed to get to know me better, which opened me up to new love. And so now I'm in a new marriage with the love of my life and my best friend, which just proves there is life after divorce. On this podcast, we have conversations about real talk, life, marriage, divorce, finances. Today, we have a special guest joining us, and I want you to participate in the conversation. So call 240 532 2227. That's 240 532 2227. Because today we have Miss Zina Letrece joining us. Hey, Zina, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. So before we begin, I have got to introduce you to everyone listening. So for those of you, Zina is also a co-author on the #1 Amazon bestseller in 8 categories and internationally. Our book is titled Your Voice Matters. This book was a collaboration of love, of healing, and an expression to let the voices of those that have been marginalized know that in this country, in the United States, the death of George Floyd exposed the trauma that has been felt by so many Black Americans for years. But we are now clear that that was not just an isolated incident. And so Zina has shared her love and her passions in that. She is the CEO of Life Essentials with Zina Letrece. Zina offers strategies with shifting your mindset to positive outcomes. She is also the co-founder and executive director of Zen Rob Inc., a nonprofit organization that uses theater arts to provide middle school and high school students a platform for discussing trauma in the home. Zina Letrece is now 32 years sober, overcoming active addiction, mental health diagnosis, and poor self-image. She uses her experiences to rise above her own brokenness, as well as give others the strategies that they need to rise above theirs. She has also authored a book called Life in the Fast Lane, A Journey Back to Myself. Zina Letrece, thank you so much for being here and knowing your heart to serve. I understand why you felt inclined to add to this project. Can you tell us a little bit about your portion to this book?
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction, Tanya. I so appreciate the invitation to come on your show. So thank you so much. What when everything happened with George Floyd, and we were given the opportunity to use our voice to speak on experiences of racism that we had gone through in our life, I reflected um, over a good portion of my life, and how um, I had really been blessed or blinded. I can't distinguish between the two, or from identifying where I was being marginalized or set aside or set apart or overlooked or dismissed or silenced, because I've been so self-absorbed that I wasn't really noticing when that was happening with others toward me. But I was able to pinpoint a particular experience. I was very excited to be brought on to the Chamber of Commerce in Long Beach, California. And I felt honored that I was considered for the position. And I was a young single mother, not long divorced at that point. And I thought it was a great opportunity to be able to support my family and build on the life that I imagined that I would live. And it didn't really register that I was the only Black woman there. It didn't really register that everybody else was of a different color, because quite frankly, the employees and the management team in the office were very, very warm to me. They didn't treat me poorly. They didn't single me out. It was an even keeled, warm temperature in that space. And it wasn't until a visitor coming from another state came to get information from the Chamber of Commerce. And I was the first person he saw because I sat at the front desk. I was the receptionist there. I sat at the front desk, and the first thing he said was, "What are you doing? What are you doing out front where everybody can see?" And I thought it was a joke because it was so off-putting, and I had been, I guess, shielded, so to speak, from um, experiences like that. So it took me aback. I began to laugh, and he said, "What's so funny, N-word?" And it went from
Mm.
there, and he began to shout in the front office, "Get this N-word out of the front window. Why is this N-word in the front window?" And I was just
Mm.
like, what is happening?
That
Is
unfortunately happens too much.
It's
But
like,
you all are going
yes,
to have to get the book to read the rest
to
of her
read the rest
story.
of
But
that story.
this is the experience that too many of us are walking through. We keep
Absolutely.
encountering that, and you would think that in this day and age, we wouldn't have to keep doing it. But
Right,
unfortunately, we do.
right.
As a result, the book has been written. So, what's exciting you about this book?
So about Your Voice Matters. I'm excited that many African American authors, or at least authors of color, have been able to come together, collaborate, use their voice in its raw authenticity, and tell just a snippet of what they've been able to step over and overcome in spite of. I'm very excited about that opportunity, and I'm very excited that has been the expression that was given so many of us. I think there are 32 or 33 of us in the book, and so
There are
I just think that's
seven of us in
are
this
there
book.
37? Oh my God. I
Yes,
just that's what's exciting to me.
that is a lot. So, because we had so many different variations, because there are high school students that wanted to make a contribution to this book as well. There's poems, your story and my story, like storylines. There's so much that has been put in that book. So, for those of you, get the book. You can go to Amazon to get Your Voice Matters. Our book has been a powerful lesson pack. And I want to ask you quickly, what impact do you want to have this book make as we move forward, Zina?
I want young people especially to understand that they have a voice for a reason, and they have the power, the authority, and the opportunity to make their voice known. And there's a way to be heard that is not destructive. Oftentimes out of frustration, sheer frustration and exhaustion with being overlooked and silenced, you feel like the only way to be heard is through destructive measures. And so the impact I want to make is that there are other ways to be heard. So it requires creativity and tenacity and courageousness, but it can be done.
And that is difficult because
Yeah.
oftentimes we don't have a platform that can, one, help us learn how to do that, give us
Mhm.
insights about what that truly looks like. We saw during that time that there was sort of a dichotomy in the world where there were some individuals that kind of knew it was coming and was just waiting for it to just explode. There were others that had no idea, so they have never been prepared how
Right,
to walk through it.
right.
How would you give a suggestion? Because you and I have walked through some experiences in a couple
Yeah.
of different things. And I know for me personally, I had to help my sons gain some insight. But because I was prepared early to know you're born Black in America. So there's certain things you have to learn to do, certain ways that you're going to have to behave, despite, which is probably why you were caught off guard and laughed.
Right. I was like, right.
Because we were given certain tools and certain insight, and there's a space and a place where you think, this is no longer needed.
Right.
What would you suggest? What would you say?
Well, and that's actually one of the reasons that my nonprofit is operating in the direction that it's operating currently, which is creating a platform to use creative arts for young people to tell their stories of challenge, trauma, difficulty, crisis, trials, tribulations, with a spin on the outcomes, whether it's factual or desired, so that they can have an opportunity to see the benefit of the experience above the pain. And so, creative arts saved me many a day. I can't tell you how many unbearable situations I took the education I got in theater and used it to get me through the moment. It's like, okay, this is the stage, these are the characters, this is the script, this is who I am, this is my part. Curtain. And for whatever it take, it got me through many of scrapes where my life was on the line, where my dignity was on the line, where my future was on the line, and just being able to get through a moment and not let the moments overtake me, have proven to be quite beneficial to the world, so to speak.
So you're
At
a
least
certified life coach now.
I
And with
am.
all of your life experiences that you have and being certified, how much of that are you using to support the youth? Because going to deal with middle school, I remember my first middle school play. We had some high schoolers come in and do this play, and it was about don't smoke cigarettes and stuff and don't do drugs. I'm a child of the 80s. So that was a theme that was happening in schools. And
Don't
then
do drugs.
don't do drugs. So what do you share? What do you give this generation? Because they seem to have a whole lot more that they have to deal with than I recall ever having to struggle through as a child.
One thing I experience with young people today is they appreciate and respect the truth. And so I don't come as one who has all the answers. I come as one who has experienced a great much, not a great many, but a great much of life. And I don't hold any bones about what that looked like. I don't, I'm very, I'm an open book to what mindsets led to conclusions and decisions I made as a young person that led to situations that if I had to do all over again, I would hope that I would do differently. And so they appreciate the and respect that I don't come with oh, just turn the other cheek, or oh, smile and it'll all be better, or it's okay. No, sometimes it's really not okay.
That's so true. And that's the problem that we have. Oftentimes, people want to sort of sugarcoat the hard truth. We have to deal with some things head on. This is what happened. Yes, I did it. But here's the thing I want you to know. Can you give us an insight about what something that you've shared as your life story that can be an actionable step? Because on this podcast, we have conversations about hard truths. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about a hard truth that some people just don't want to pay attention to. But what can they do to get through it? Because we don't want to leave anybody out there without one something. And I know you have some things that you can share.
I'm just, my head is swimming. It's like, narrow it down, Zina, narrow it down, just one. So one thing that I do repeatedly is I acknowledge the truth about the ownership of the consequences in my life. And so what that looks like is being able to acknowledge and accept that I have set some ball to rolling at some point, uh, that has led to a critical or uncomfortable situation, and being able to own my part, because I can spend years going, well, if you had not, well, if you wouldn't have, well, if only my mother had, or should my father had just, if I had not got that beaten that day, or if someone just would have hugged me, loved me, supported me, encouraged me, whatever the pointing out of the finger has been, my situation doesn't change until I address the three pointing back at me. And I own my part. When I say, you know what, it was ignorant of me to be so rash about the decision that I made. And as a result of that decision, I have landed in this place. And in this place, the best I can do is stand up where I'm standing, acknowledge that I got myself here, and then identify what are the necessary actions that I need to take just to make one step out of the present situation I'm in that is unfavorable to me. It's great to have long range goals, but if I don't know the first next step I need to take, I will never get to that long range goal. I must bring that down into bite-sized chunks so that it's actionable. I remember, I don't want to make this a long story, but I remember one point, as a result of my own irresponsibility, I had landed in a position of homelessness again with my children. And I had to come to my mother's house again with my children. And she put us up, and she was very stern about, you can only stay such and such a time. And they were in a bedroom, and I was on the patio. She has an enclosed patio, and I was on that patio, and I made a pallet on the floor, and the floor was concrete. And so every night I would just cry. I was angry. It's like, I can't believe I'm sleeping on this hard floor, this concrete floor. And I began to fuss at God. I was like, I have promoted you. I have turned people to you. I have said you are the answer. And this is my life. How am I to continue to tell people to turn to you? And this is what you've done to my life. And very, very clearly, God said, please don't tell nobody to turn to me as an example of your life, because your life is not an example of who I am. And just like the man at the Chamber of Commerce, I was like, wait, who is that?
Your conversation.
Like,
like, really?
Are you talking to me?
That's impossible.
And what I heard, and it could have been a figment of my imagination, but it got me off my feet. It got me up on my feet. That conversation continued in a way where I said, why would you say, don't tell anyone that I serve you? And God said, because you are not an example of obedience. You are not an example of responsibility. You are not an example of one who have done what I've asked. You are not an example of due diligence. And so you have landed yourself on a concrete floor on a patio in your mama's house, not me. When you can get you up off of that, then you start telling people about me. I was like,
That right
wow.
there. Because too many people want to blame God for the hot mess that they got themselves in, forgetting that He is so loving, that He gives us free will.
Right.
You cannot truly know that someone loves you unless they have the option not to. Right. And the creator of the universe has given us the opportunity not to. And when we don't let Him come in, we want to blame.
But I just want to say that accepting that hard truth, I was able to say, what do I do from right here? And God said, first, give thanks for this concrete floor. Because you could be in the alley. You could be on the curb. You could be in an outhouse. You could be separated from your children. You could be in a house that is not your mama's house. First, give thanks for the concrete floor and the blanket and the pillow and the heat and the light. When I was able to find gratitude in the muck and the mire, miraculously, I began to rise up from the muck and the mire. Rise up, rise up. And finally, there's a story about a donkey that was stuck in a hole that the farmer was like, help me get him out, help me get him out. And all the farmers came around and said, we'll just have to bury him because there's no way to get him out. And they start chucking dirt into the hole to bury the donkey. And the donkey used that dirt to build a base that he was able to eventually step up on the dirt they were trying to bury him with and walk out of the hole. And it was the same concept. I had to give thanks where I was sitting, where I was standing. And from that gratitude place, I was able to rise up.
That is so good. And I've heard that story. And so it gives fresh perspective because we don't often pay enough attention to some of the little parables that we hear that are truly life answers. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, having heard what you just said, you also support the homeless and housed vets. It's because you know how that's taking place. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So to be completely transparent, every job I've ever taken working for someone else was because I needed a job. I just need to say that. There was no great pull to go into any particular industry because I was called into that industry. However, I do believe that it is through purpose that I've experienced everything that I experienced. And needing a job, I ended up working for Volunteers of America, which is a nonprofit corporation that partners with the VA. And my specific responsibility was to case manage homeless veterans. And because I have such an extensive background in drug addiction and all the things that come with that, homelessness, mental health, all the things that come with that. It was a great asset to have me in the corporation. And working with homeless vets gave me a different perspective on homelessness. It gave me a different perspective on mental health, and it gave me a different perspective on drug use. Because veterans, and me not being a veteran, it would, I had to always approach it from a place of humility. I would never come at a veteran saying, I know what you're talking about, or I understand how you feel, because I've not served in that capacity. But I have been homeless. I have been hungry. I have been seeking services and not getting them. And so becoming an advocate for homeless veterans became a very big passion for me. Going up against the VA is no small feat. And what I found oftentimes was, especially for veterans of color, not just African American, just non-Caucasian, there was a system that seemed to be in place where they got the raw end of the stick. Many of them were eligible for services and benefits and financial and medical that they were not aware of. I ran across many veterans who had been out of the military for 10, 15, 20, 30 years and did not know that there were specific benefits available to them, which I found just mind-boggling. And so I walked through the VA kind of like a little crazy lady. It's like, hey, I got a vet here that needs your help.
Somebody's got to be the advocate. And I thank you for being the one that was, because I know, having reached out, just a call, have not been in service with them. I am not in the service with any of them, but I have a lot of family and friends in military. And so I have met several homeless individuals just begging on the street. And I would call them like, here's the number of the VA. I'll call on your behalf. Or I'll use my Facebook or my various social media platforms to say, hey, if anybody knows how to help, there was one guy named Kenny that used to panhandle outside of my job. And I am so in awe still about the love that people have to help and to serve. Kenny finally got the help he needed from someone in the VA. Hopefully, someone like you panhandling the VA office. He got a place to live. He got off the street. He's in a better place. And he let me know he came back, was a little cleaned up. I was like, oh, hi, Kenny. He said, yes, I just celebrated my 75th birthday in my own place. And he had been homeless for like 16 or 17 years.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
It is amazing. And what gets stepped over often is the pride and dignity these human beings have. There are assumptions made because their clothes are dirty and they have not bathed and they're in a position where they need to beg, that they don't have any value anymore, and that is so untrue. And it's not just in the veteran community. You find that in many communities, and what happens is, especially in the homeless community, we have a large homeless community here in California, and what you encounter oftentimes are people who would prefer to be outside because being inside requires them to follow unreasonable rules and regulations. It's like I haven't read or been able to see or had a warm meal or a hot bath in 14 years, but you want me to fill out this 112-page packet in order to get services. It's like, no, never. I'll just sleep. Can I have a blanket? I'll stay outside.
Right.
Because there are no walls, there are no rules and regulations. All these things you're asking me to do are unreasonable, especially with the mental health. Some of them have been robbed, attacked, assaulted, harassed, moved. That you go to sleep with your tent and all your belongings in this tent and in a grocery basket. You wake up and you pack it all up just to go to the shelter to get a breakfast meal, and you come back and it's all gone. Every earthly possession you've ever had. And so the transistor radio that never did work becomes an issue that you're willing to, fight to the death for, because you're tired of people taking anything from you. And no one seems to understand that that is the issue. It's not the transistor radio. It's not that they don't want housing, but you make it so hard. It's the same with the youth. You make it so hard. I will help you if you can jump through this teeny tiny ring that's made of fire over a thimble full of water.
But think about it. That is the true in so many other areas of life as well. We often find ourselves in a space, in a place where we're trying to get better, or in relationships or other life encounters, and we're not quite sure. But you, as an empowerment coach, you encourage others to know how to have the power to pivot. How do you help them make that shift?
I listen. I sit and I listen and I ask. I don't start with a demand, command, or instruction. I start with a question. What is your biggest barrier? What is the thing that troubles you the most? I don't assume that because they're homeless and dirty that a house is what they need. I ask them, what do you need? What do you think you need? Oftentimes they'll say, if I just had a driver's license or a California ID, I could get a job and take care of myself. And so if I skip over the listening piece and I encounter someone in that condition, my ignorant assumption may have me going hard in the paint to get them housed or to get them clothed or to get them food. But that only takes care of them on a Tuesday. Wednesday morning, they wake up in that same condition. Where if I ask them what they need, and what they say is, I need the capacity to even look for work. and I address that thing, they can get their own food, their own clothes, their own house. They didn't start out on the street corner that I find them. And so my biggest tool is listening, being willing to listen and starting with a question as opposed to a command.
And I thank you for sharing that. And also, because of that, you like to help others get past their pain, their hurt into a special place. You have a special gift for our audience. Can you tell us more about that?
So I have an online course, A Bright Future from a Dark Past, and in an effort uh, to give individuals the opportunity to position themselves to be able to do life the way they choose or desire. um, Everyone is not able to make that investment. And so, what I do have is a 4-step plan, which is a condensed version of that online course. And in that 4-step plan, I just give 4 ideas of ways to identify where you stand, where you'd like to go, what is in the way of you getting there, and how to take one action, one step to reduce that barrier in that moment. And so I like it. I think it's pretty cool. I've had good response from
Well, I
it.
thank you for sharing it with us. And we have to start wrapping up. Is there one last common question or thought that you want to leave for us today?
I just want to say, no matter where you are, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done or what has happened to you, we all, every time we open our eyes, have another opportunity to stand where we're standing and start again right where we are. And you cannot start from where you are not. You can only start from where you are.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So, everyone, you have heard this has been a great time with Zina Letrece. Go to her website so that you can get her books, find her other services. It's Life Essentials with ZinaLetrece.com. And you'll see that at the bottom for those of you that are on YouTube. So, Zina, thank you so much. Again, so appreciate your heart to serve, your desire to give back and help others feel empowered to make the shifts that they need to get to their next level. We appreciate you so much for that. And for those of you watching, just be mindful that if you don't remember anything else that was shared with you today, you have the ability to be empowered to make the shifts that you need. And there is help available. Zina has just shared with you that she is a resource that can help you get to your next position. And if you're on Clubhouse, you can join us every Tuesday, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the continued conversation. Zina will join us so we can talk a little bit more because there was so much more we could have shared today. So I thank you all for being here. And in the meantime, this is Tanya E. Hood, walking in my purpose. And I want you to do the same.